That's it. Realist News, burning through the propaganda. Realist News, burning through the propaganda. JSnip4 here from YouTube. I've got, as you may have guessed by the title of this video, some fantastic news. Now, you know Cliff Eye allows me to do these summaries of his WebBot reports. He's always asked me, hey, keep it down to 30 minutes if you can, which absolutely I will do that. But the last WebBot report was kind of a one-off. It's called Alta BTC1 January 2017. This was a specific report, WebBot report or Alta report, completely focused on Bitcoin, and to my surprise, as I started reading it, quite a bit about silver, gold as well. So that's pretty much what this one's about. And there was some really interesting stuff in here. So I was like, man, that's too bad I can't do a summary, on this one. Because he'd asked me, he's like, this one's a real short one. There's only 12 pages of actual data out of 18. Then the rest of those pages are simply definitions and stuff. So he said, go ahead and read the whole thing. What? You know what old Cliff says about universe. Universe likes people that, when you give, things come back to you. When you help people, it comes back to you, right? And he's a firm believer in universe, thinking that way, so to speak. But 'tis my pleasure to start reading this to you right now in full. This is not a summary. This is the full WebBot report on Bitcoin and silver that he just released last week. He titled it Riding the Dragon, Bitcoin and Markets Forecast for February 2017 through March 2018. An asymmetric linguistic trends analysis intelligence report, or ALTA report, from halfpasthuman.com. As you know, he gives, or not gives them away, but he puts them out every month, normal WebBot reports, using the beginning of the month. So if you're interested in purchasing these things to potentially know about future events or price swings or certain things on Bitcoin, as well as just global stuff happening, $15 for one of these reports. Doesn't get any better than that, but this one is on the house. Okay. Introduction. Bitcoin has been surfacing in our predictive linguistics work since late in 2005. Yes, this was several years before the appearance of the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper detailing the idea of the blockchain and its primary use, a cryptocurrency. When the data for the new money keyword began to emerge, it was initially assumed to be an after-the-fact replacement for the dying dollar, as these terms presented themselves to our data sets. There were hints in the data that our interpretation was not accurate, but it was not until Satoshi released the white paper in 2009 that the mystery was solved. At the time of the Satoshi dialogues at the various forum sites, the data sets were identifying the work as the nascent or new money. It took until late 2011 before the first of what we considered to be reliable temporal markers emerged into reality, and thereafter we here at Half Past Human became convinced that Bitcoin was going to have legs well into the future, which we were quite vocal about stating over those early years. It has been a very tumultuous and torturous road since. Review of recent activity and forecasts. In Alta reports since mid-2015, we have been able to detail some of the Bitcoin to US dollar price action. In these reports, we correctly predicted some of the more unique price movements, such as our forecast that Bitcoin would be going through 408 to 428 3 times before putting the 400s under the floor, so to speak. This pattern did occur. Other forecasts in late spring, Northern Hemisphere, of 2016 for Bitcoin to cross 650 US dollars within specific patterns of behavior afterward also occurred through summer of 2016. In fall, Northern Hemisphere, 2016, we correctly predicted that Bitcoin would pause in the vicinity of $888, again, US dollars. And this is pretty much going to be all US dollars until you hear me talk about the yuan, the Chinese currency. So in fall, Northern Hemisphere, 2016, we correctly predicted that Bitcoin would pause in the vicinity of $888 in its upward climb to $1,130 US dollars. Further, we also correctly predicted that Bitcoin would return to 888 USD after reaching over 1100, where it would, as described in the data, dither for a while. Once done with its dither, Bitcoin was forecast to again trudge past $1,130 to reach new all-time highs. In recent months, new data sets are now showing the Bitcoin to Chinese yuan relationships. This is a natural effect even to be expected as China becomes the dominant population within the Bitcoin sphere. Within the Chinese yuan focused sets in 2016, we have had 8,888 yuan and 80,808, so that's 80808 yuan as our primary indicators for price movements. In a very similar pattern to the 408 to 428 forecast previously mentioned, as well as the dither at $888, we now have patterns, which, by the way, anyone not knowing this, the 888 was called out way in advance, and I have seen Bitcoin dithering up and down 888. There was one point in the day where it was like 888.88. It was insane. Now, I don't mean today or yesterday, but recently, very recently. And it's been hitting that, going up, going back down. So it's incredible to me to see this come in a report from this Half Past Human, this Webbot report, and then sit back and actually watch it happen. That's incredible. So he's saying, like those other forecasts, we have patterns now showing in the data sets for the movement of Bitcoin in the Chinese currency, the yuan or renminbi. Again, a to be expected development as Bitcoin moves further into the Chinese population. To those new to our alto forecasting technology and technique, we need to note that words in single quotes are those that are extracted from the data directly to be described in their relationships to the other words about the subject. Which I know when I do the summaries, you guys don't know which specific words might be the keyword because I'm just reading this. A lot of times I'll emphasize it a little bit, but not always. We also need to note that our processing brings back very few numbers due to the nature of numerals in the internet. So those few numbers that we are able to offer have made it past our very rigorous processing by virtue of having both emotional attachments at the time and to the originating population and presumed prescient value. Stated another way for clarity, we do not get a lot of numbers in our work, and those that have appeared in the past have proven worthy of attention as events manifested. Processing for 2017. The recent, by the time this report is made available, which again was, I think, Friday the 13th. So the recent, by the time this was made, report, moves of Bitcoin in its price swings down are indicated within the data processing from 2017 to be reflective of three factors. These include profit-taking, panic, and criminal activities. I'm going to stop right here for a second because I just read today, which was the previous day, because you see these videos in the morning, that some entity got busted in China for something to do with Bitcoin fraudulent something or another. We already know there was profit taking because there was a mass sell-off in China, and panic. Panic to buy, panic to sell, which was happening. These things, as he said, by the time this is available, we're going to see some of this. It's a week later, and the whole criminal activity piece is now a factor because that just happened today. The data sets are showing that this last, or the criminal activities, are to be the source for the Chinese central authorities and their focus on Bitcoin over these next few months. The focus anticipated price moves, yet the forecast anticipated price moves from mid-January through to the end of April are showing within the data sets as being jumps over political hurdles as the Chinese central authorities are indicated to be maneuvering to embrace Bitcoin. Other sets have the Chinese central authorities preparing advertising and media productions over these next few months for a rollout or release to the public in early summer. These television and internet video presentations are described as both introducing the Chinese face of Bitcoin, a new spokesperson, and revealing central authorities' policy on the subject, Within our broader Alta reports, the Central Authorities' embrace of Bitcoin is coincident with Chinese Central Authorities making announcements about their Virtual Asia initiative, within which are plans to enfold more than 1 billion new internet users in the next 2 years. The data accruing to model space would suggest that much of the announcements around the new Chinese Central Authorities' plans will be in early to mid-summer, Northern Hemisphere. The data sets have the impacts on Bitcoin being very substantial by the point of the announcement. It may also be that this announcement contains language about reserve currency status for Bitcoin within the Chinese banking system. There are a number of sets that are describing the Chinese Central Authorities as riding the Bitcoin dragon, as the central planners, will have an understanding that a new force has emerged that can be intimately tied to individual citizens. The idea coming across is that if all China Pop and Virtual Asia Pop has Bitcoin, and it is the Chinese Central Bank Reserve, then every person is a stakeholder or invested in the health of this society and its financial institutions that are Bitcoin-based. Our data sets have the Chinese Central Authorities in a period of about 4 months of cleanup as they decriminalize the Bitcoin infrastructure in China. Over this time, the data sets have various bouts of price swings, first downward, then snapbacks or spring-ups to fill the gaps. These sets are indicating that some of the price drops and swings will be 20+%. So that means up or down 20+% and will occur in less than a week. As you know, again, this is already put out last week, but even at the beginning of the year, we did see Bitcoin hit the high, 1,100 something, not the highest ever, but the high recently, and then drop down over 20%, like very rapidly. So you could argue that already happened before this robot was written. However, it already said past, you're going to see what he called crocodile teeth, big up, big down, big up, big down with Bitcoin. So that's predicted in advance anyways. But he's saying you are going to see 20% moves up and down coming to a planet near you soon. Overall, it's going to be looking fantastic, apparently, but not only for that gold and silver, and we will be getting into that in a little bit. Longer-term data for Bitcoin from these past 5 years has indicated that prices would be escalating to 80808 won, renminbi, per coin. Further language within the longer-term sets over these past few years has been clearly forecasting a China home for Bitcoin in the 2020s, as in the year 2020s. Supporting sets for the China home set have forecast the steady stream of what we term China Pop or Chinese population buyers over 2015 and 2016, leading to a near-term coincident shift of the majority of Bitcoin owners now speaking Chinese and a rise in price per coin to 8881. Again, the webbot correctly said a while back you're going to see big price moves coming to Bitcoin, which it gave all those numbers, what it was going to see, and this it's going to go past 428 and all that stuff. It's going to hit 650, then it's going to go at 800. It called all of that and said the reason being, the massive reason being, is because China is going to get an appetite for Bitcoin, so to speak, in different words, but that's what it said. So when you go to fiatleak.com, and it shows you live where the transfers are taking place, where they're being bought and sold, you see massive action in China versus a tiny bit of action in the U.S. So it also nailed that, okay? So both have been manifest in these last few weeks as part of the dither language within our processing for this period of price action for Bitcoin. The data has held that 8888 won per coin would be revisited, just as the 888 USD would be the focus of the dither language. Again, for clarity, those sets of our data that had 888 US dollars as being dithering period after breaching $1,130 and then falling back off the stair also have supporting sets saying that when the dither is done, that the next pause would be at 8,888 won per coin. Just to give you an idea, won to USD, and I'm going to put in 88.88. That's a price of at least today, right now, of $1,300 US dollars, which would be a new record. Anyways, please note that the time period that Bitcoin spent around $888 on the run-up to $1,130 was indicated within the data to be about half of the total dither time. The interpretation has been that nearly the same period would be spent at 888 before dithering or gathering strength for the walk past the gate. The total of these two time periods should be examined by traders, as that sum will be used to define our dither language. The dither language set has many instances of appearance as we progress model space through 2017. The use of this timing is apparently to be important in the developing Bitcoin pricing movements. Further, there are suggestions from supporting sets that the dither language points are to be coincident with currency's crisis inflection points for markets other than Bitcoin. The walk through the gate language is the data describing the relatively swift and easy passing of Bitcoin from dither to past $1,088, which has been recently defined within the data as being a gate and not a fence. Further sets will be within the dither supporting linguistics have the next US dollar focal point for increasing talk on the street or media blast at $1,448 US. These sets are cross-linked in our system to the sets for 8,888 Chinese yuan. The implication in the data is that the brief pause at 8,881 is temporally connected to the opening the gate of 1,088 US dollars. Within our most recent processing of the release of this report, the new data sets have the pricing movement after 1,088 USD to be striding toward $1,448. When we view the supporting sets for the striding language, there are indicators for a major policy shift within the Chinese central authorities, which again is government or officialdom, that will be growing in the background over these next few months, yet nonetheless having price impacts. The Chinese central authorities within our data sets are forecast as changing their minds in an attempt to get ahead of Bitcoin as it makes its way through the collective mind of China Pop. This change of heart language for China Pop is a larger echo of what we had for years as supporting linguistics for the government of Russia to change their stance on Bitcoin. That the Russian government has indeed visibly changed their approach to Bitcoin provides increasing confidence in the similar forecast for Chinese government now arising. The striding language for Bitcoin is temporally coincident with the appearance of sets for silver and gold that also have dramatic language. There has been a very long-term link between $1,000 Bitcoin and a silver price rise that would include gaps in pricing, which would begin at $2 moves per day in silver, to be followed by $5 moves in a day, and then within mere weeks, $20 per day. These longer-term sets were supporting a major silver set that included $600 per ounce price, as well as the start of the restructuring to natural of the silver to gold ratio. Within the and what that means, anyone that doesn't know, historically speaking, gold and silver, the ratio from silver to gold was about 16 to 1. 16 ounces of silver would equal 1 ounce of gold, or 20 ounces. It would fluctuate. 20 ounces sometimes of silver is the same amount as 1 ounce of gold as far as price. In today's wacky world, and it's only in recent history, it's like 80 to 80-something, somewhere in the 80s, to 1. So what he's talking about is the restructuring to natural of the silver to gold ratio, meaning where it's at, this 80 to 1, 85 to 1 crap, is coming back down to what history says it should be for thousands of years, 20 to 1, 16 to 1, etc. If that happened today, the price of silver would quadruple. And if you were to just round that off to $20, I know it's not there yet, 17 something, 20, 40, 60, 80, that's $80 silver. But as it said, $600. Now, I want to be very clear on this. Webbot has called price movements in silver and gold a few times in the past. Reports like, okay, it looks like in the next few months we might see a jump or this or that, and then it didn't happen. again, this is something that's a controlled market. Bitcoin is very hard to control because they can't print paper to manipulate the actual underlying asset like they can in the futures contract on the futures markets with gold, silver, copper, oil, you name it, cotton, corn. They can't, if they're going to manipulate it, they have to actually buy it and then sell it back into the market and flood the market, which they did, which is what pushed the price down a while back. And then people are now scooping them up and buying them again. So anyways, why I'm saying this is because this is the only time in recent history, not this report, but last few reports, where Cliff even made mention on his own channel and on I think Twitter, that there was this connection coming in the data of Bitcoin being $1,000 plus or whatever, and silver and gold, mainly silver, being like noticeable. Oh my God, we just had a massive move in silver. And again, if I woke up today or whatever next day and I'm watching my silver stuff like I always do, see the price of everything, and all of a sudden I noticed, oh my God, there was a $2 jump. It was $17 today. It's now $19. Oh, you get something. What has just happened? So that would be the $2 move, followed by $5, followed by $20. And now that part, the moves of 2, 5, and 20 have been in the data for a very long time. The issue is the timing, the time frame that he thought, according to the data. He's only repeating what he thinks, what he gets out of the data. It's just been off. And I've seen this many, many times with the Webbot. But I have also seen things come way later that was spot on with the prediction. Just the timing was off. So what I'm hoping for, and it's just a hope, that because we now have Bitcoin being phenomenally predicted, the price in advance by him, as well as the movements of it's going to go above this and below that first, and all that, and the fact that now in recent times, very recent, last few months, he says there's now an attachment essentially from $1,000 Bitcoin in the data to silver price going way up, starting to really break out. So we have Donald Trump taking office soon, and well, actually, 20th, and maybe he's going to clean house, and maybe the manipulators are going to go away. And by chance, Bitcoin is over here toying around on the $1,000 mark. Now I realize right now it's in the 800s, but it already hit past that. So maybe when it's 1,000 and past 1,000, doesn't come back down, that's when we might expect to see this. I don't know. Take that part with a grain of salt, because I've seen the silver in these things for so long and still waiting. When's it going to happen? But I also know that the longer something shows up in these reports, and I'm talking years and years and years that this silver stuff has been in there, it's going to happen as it said. It's just going to be out there time-wise. So I just want to, in case anyone doesn't understand that or thinks it's going to happen tomorrow or the next week, be prepared that it does not. But it may, because we have an attachment now at $1,000 Bitcoin. So just keep that in mind, okay? Within the $600 sets, again for silver, are also references to 20,000 Dow Jones. Now that's another thing he talked about a long time ago. $20,000 Dow Jones before the next stock market, crash or whatever. But he's saying in those same sets there are references to 20,000 Dow. And when he was calling for 20,000 Dow so many years ago, it was absurd to even say that. The Dow wasn't even, I think, 14,000 at the time. This was many, many years ago. So, anyways, within the $600 sets are also references to 20,000 Dow. Further, hold on. The Dow Jones hit 19,999 and like 62 cents or something. That's 20,000 Dow, although it's not, the actual number's not there yet. So could you imagine we finally breached 20,000 Dow for real? The number shows up. Oh wow, Wall Street's great today. And then Bitcoin goes past 1,000, and then silver and gold follow suit. That would be fantastic to just see it unfold that way. Further supporting sets for silver within these linguistic structures contain language for silver to gold parity insofar as price. That's another thing that's been in the data for a very long time, that at some point, due to sheer panic buying, frenzy, the sheeple getting on at the last minute when you're never supposed to get in, that the price of silver would match the price of gold. That's what the data is suggesting many, many times. He's just repeating what it says. I know it's absurd because that says 16 to 1 ratio, 20 to 1 ratio. That's 1 to 1. But in a sheer panic, anything's possible. I want you to keep in mind. And let me just tell you, if that happens, even gets close to 8 to 1, I don't even want to know what the price of gold and silver is at the time, but I won't care because I'll be selling my stack faster than you can shake a stick at it, much less lick it. From a redneck, told me that once. Don't know what that means, but it sounds good. These sets also have supporting sets for a giant, super high-tech industrial demand for silver that will propel both price and civilization over the 2020s. Again, the year 2020s. These forecasts have long been in the public domain. Now, I did a video a little while back of a company out of New Jersey that I think fits that bill. Super high-tech industrial demand for silver. They have some kind of device that it uses molten silver to create this incredibly powerful light, fusion reaction or some kind of creates light, 10 or 100 times more powerful than the sun as far as light or something like that. And then they have these high density solar panels they're small, but so much light's hitting them, they produce an incredible amount of power. And it's always running, so nighttime, daytime means nothing. And I thought maybe it's another nonsense website, but I checked into it. And the name of this thing is called SunCell. It's one word, SunCell, SUNCELL. Search for that on Google, and there's some very interesting videos of this thing working and how it works. And the key thing when I saw it that I flipped out over, it needs silver because it makes it into molten silver. So you're talking about an energy source that can power things, cars, houses, electric grids, you name it. Potentially, anyways, in the future, it's going to gobble up massive amounts of silver. Now you can probably see why we might see $600 an ounce silver. Now you might be able to see why it might go 1-to-1 with gold at some point. Okay? As we are now at that point in time where we approach 20,000 Dow and are nearing the return of Bitcoin striding through the 1,088 gate, US dollars, gate, it becomes necessary to also note that banks have recently been pleading guilty to having manipulated the price of silver for these past decades. As you know, Deutsche Bank was leading that one very recently. This fact of an ongoing conspiracy by the global banking industry to suppress the price of silver has not in any way diminished the emotionally based forecasting from showing silver as being within striding distance of the long-term forecast of $600 per ounce. We also need to note the many appearances of public discussion about prices of silver in 3 digits. $100, $200, etc. These and many other temporal markers are manifesting as forecast years ago by our processing. The point of the above discussion is to provide a framework for examining language that is now appearing in the data for silver to spring up, to define gaps, as it is also going to be diverging within the global price platform. These gaps, previously defined as $2 and $5 days, are also temporally linked to prices for silver that are defined as past events, never to be repeated, nor seen again. These sets have language for ancestral that are describing upcoming events as being history or often told tales for future generations. As in other words, $2 moves in silver, $5 moves in silver, it did that in the first few minutes of the market opening. That's nonsense. That's not, in other words, you're not going to see these moves. They're going to be child's play. There's going to be major moves. It's going to be like Bitcoin. Up $20, up $100, up $70, down. That's what it's saying here. $2 and $5 moves are going to be a thing of the past when this starts happening. Okay, the most recent processing of the last 2 months has had silver reaching a point of over 125 US dollars within a background of financial structure chaos that is forecast elsewhere within the data as reaching its near-term crisis peak in March. This near-term crisis peak is dominated by currencies and derivatives. The silver price is showing as a broad range from $125 US to over $345 US. These sets have the prices widely divergent, but there is also language for arbitrage being almost impossible. The near-term crisis peak is forecast as lifting Bitcoin through 1,448 US dollars within the few days just ahead of the currency's crisis peak. A very large temporal marker for this point is going to be the announcement of a global financial meeting that will be described as emergency and New Bretton Woods language. In the data, there are gold and silver references that also support this meeting of the financial elites as being supportive of gold and silver. However, the data sets are also showing that getting up to this point, the financial elites are going to cause a very large amount of both financial and emotional pain across much of the developed dollar-based world. The data sets have described the silver pricing action at the time that Bitcoin is moving through its $1,088 gate as being explosive with gaps in the price. These gap sets contain supporting sets for speculative fever within China Pop to obtain Bitcoin. These fevers will be in spite of the official Bitcoin disparaging stance of the Chinese authorities. So let me read that again real quick. The data sets have described the silver pricing action at the time that Bitcoin is moving through its 1088 gate as being explosive with gaps in the price. Not Bitcoin being explosive with gaps in the price. Silver being explosive with gaps in the price. These gap sets contain supporting sets for speculative fever within China Pop to obtain Bitcoin. These fevers will be in spite of the official Bitcoin disparaging stance of the Chinese authorities. These Bitcoin fevers are filled with descriptive language referencing gambling fevers, but are dominated by the language more frequently seen in gold rush fevers. The Bitcoin fevers within China Pop are showing as running from late December 2016 all the way through 2019. The next date highlighted within our data shows for the last few days of January. So we're in January. You're going to see this on the 19th. So what it's suggesting is end of this month, last few days of this month, would be a highlighted date of Bitcoin fever, so to speak. So if I'm to understand what this is saying, and I think I do, Bitcoin's $800 something right now. If you've been contemplating, is it going to go down any further or should I get in on it? You may want to get in on it now so that when this fever hits later this month, if it happens, as the Webbot suggests, and it's been great with its predictions, as you know, but just don't understand, it may not. There's always it's not perfect, but damn it, it's as close as you can possibly get to being perfect when it comes to Bitcoin. So, anyways, the data sets have Bitcoin retracing the path of gold up to and beyond $1,900 over early 2017. As it is doing so, the Bitcoin pricing is described as being based on global demand that will be rising not only in China Pop, but increasingly in the populations of both India and the Southeast Asian nations. Within the Southeast Asia Pop, we have special emphasis on Indonesia. Within the longer-term sets, the rising of India Pop and the Southeast Asia Pop as major Bitcoin centers of activity are showing as being future backstops for what will become more violent price swings. The data is showing that India Pop and Southeast Asia Pop are going to be perennial bargain hunters who will be devising very effective software to scoop decibits of Bitcoin on price swings. I'm going to assume decibits because a full Bitcoin is 1 or 1.0, right? If I send you a half a Bitcoin, I'm sending you 0.5 of a Bitcoin. I can literally send you, if I wanted to, 0.0015, for example, of a Bitcoin. In other words, a fraction, a decimal, if you will, of the price. So I guess what Cliff High is suggesting from his data, and this does not surprise me when it comes out of China, but especially India. When you need any software development, you go online to freelancer.com or something, and you say, hey, I've got a project I need developed, whether it's for iPhone app or Windows application. You get flooded almost instantaneously with, bid. And you know what I see? China, China, India, 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 Pakistan, India, 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 USA, India, 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 India. The Indians are programmers. They're out of control over there, okay? So think of what the club has developed over the last 2 decades. High frequency trading. Not more so the last decade. High frequency trading, where their computers, servers sit right inside the same server room as, Wall Street's in the markets, etc. So the millisecond time, ping time to back and forth of these things are like non-existent. Therefore, they can make trades faster than everybody else. And their software, again, the way these high frequency algorithms work is they're scraping pennies. They're earning pennies in positive cash flow from these massive trades, but they're doing unbelievable amounts of trades per second, multiple computers, multiple systems, and they're making profits in pennies. But again, when there's hundreds of thousands of pennies going on all day, it potentially is a lot of money, okay? More than that, actually, than hundreds of thousands. So I'm just thinking out loud here. They're going to scoop deci bits of Bitcoin. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to develop software that can catch these price moves and start making trades rapidly for them. In and out, in and out, in and out. Very quickly. Again, scooping up what he calls decibits. But when you have potentially a few $1,000 Bitcoin, those little fractions can add up to, $50, $100. And they've been scooping up left and right all day long. So in India, you can be quite wealthy. Not only that, if you're in the USA, you'd be quite wealthy doing that. So that's what I think this is going to lead to. It's just my opinion. These sets are among many that are describing the Bitcoin market evolving globally over these next 4 years. As Bitcoin becomes more sophisticated, it also is indicated to become more prevalent within the global population. The adoption rate is also indicated to smooth out the volatility. However, that effect will not be noticed in Bitcoin pricing until later in 2017. The longer-term sets have Bitcoin market globally late in 2018 as being segmented, but so global and rapid that price swings caused by one country or government are nearly instantly covered by purchases at the global population level. So in other words, you try to flood the market, someone decides, we're going to flood the market with a ton of Bitcoin. Wrong, they're going to be scooped up by the people. The speed of the Bitcoin markets is also indicated to be a pressure that brings India pop and Southeast Asia pop to become sophisticated algorithmic market traders. Again, I think I nailed that with my thought on the software now that I'm reading that. That's probably what's going to happen. In spite of the global population acting as price support for Bitcoin during swings, the data sets have a number of these coming. On the way to $2,300, the data has pullbacks that will occur. There are two of note that are forming in the data now. The first is a large, nearly 500 USD drop, followed by more dither, although now described as about half as long as with the $888 dither, on the way back up to over $1,088. The $500 point drop is described in the data as a fluctuation. So it's got $500 point drop. So on its way to $2,300, again, the first is a nearly $500 USD drop, followed by more dither, although now described as about half as long as the $888 dither, on the way back up to over $1,088. The $500 point drop is described in the data as a fluctuation. As of this report, the data provides that the 500 USD drop in price will be brief and sudden, but also will thereafter define the percent rate of drop for Bitcoin for its consolidations, while it still is less than 48,048 won per coin, which is 48,084 won per coin. Again, I'm going to want to take a peek at that one. Yuan to USD 40, was that 48,048 or something? It's almost $7,000 in today's money, US dollars, okay? This $500 US price drop in price is indicated to be starting from very near to $2,300. So we're at $800 something dollars. Maybe you want to get a few Bitcoins, ride it up. We're over $2,000. Sell off, getting close to $2,300. Sell off, and then a $500 drop happens. Get back in. It's going to dither up and down a little bit, and then it's going to go back up again. So that is a pro tip from the Webbot report, apparently. Prior to this larger price drop, the data shows one that will be quickly covered by global purchasing. There is another price consolidation that will bring Bitcoin prices back to $1,448. Again, this will be very temporary and will be quickly filled by global buying. At this point, again, we seem to be looking at about a 20% drop in the consolidation phase. However, please note that this set has indicators that drop down will bounce below $1,448 to some minor level. The period at this new price is showing as very brief indeed. The final down period may only register as hours. The data sets have the price falling in something of a news glut, such that people become suddenly aware that the Bitcoin prices are down and then rush into buying. The news that is obscuring the Bitcoin prices is showing as being international in scope. Further, the data sets are suggesting that this will be occurring overnight relative to China Pop. This is apparently significant in that it shows in the data as being a big score for India Pop. The data has India Pop rushing into Bitcoin price drop in such a way as to create something of a frenzy that will persist for a few days, taking Bitcoin back over its previous highs on the way to $2,300 US. I'm only on page 7. I've got 12, okay? I realize how long this video is. I'm ending this video, and I'm starting a second video, just in case people, time is money and they're not sure where they are in the video. You got through this video. I'm creating a part 2. So this is video 1 of 1, and part 2 is coming. I'm going to take off right where I left off, and I'll see you in just a second.